I really want to speak about this evening in terms of the burden of unhealed ancestors. The burden of unhealed ancestors. I think this is something that is important for us to speak about, not just because, or better yet, aside from the fact that we are about to experience this year's ancestral elevation healing ceremony in November, which takes place on the day of All Souls Day. But oftentimes, even though we might consciously know about certain things that should make sense to us or does make sense to us, we're not always fully aware as to how it shows up in our life. So that's what I want to tackle this evening with this particular topic. Are we saving this? Yes, we are saving this. Ruby Mountain was your live recorded yesterday. Yes, it is. It's always recorded and it's always on my page, so you can go there and watch yesterday's Tarot Tuesday replay if you missed it. Good evening, IG. Good evening, TikTok. I'm not on YouTube right now. I'm just here on TikTok and Instagram. So let's wait a couple of minutes, since I didn't mention, or I didn't post that I was coming on again tonight. Let's see who sees the notifications. Not everyone always sees the notifications, so let's see who sees it, and hopefully they are able to join us in this conversation this evening. I invite you to not just be open-minded, okay? I invite you to reflect. I invite you to be able to dig in your mind as to what resonates with you, what sounds familiar in your history, your familial history, what what stands out in terms of ancestral burdens, ancestral burdens. So let's start there. Let's start with the burden of unhealed ancestors, ancestral burdens. So let's write in the chat ancestral burdens. Let's write in the chat ancestral burdens. Let's write in the chat ancestral burdens. Let's write it in the chat. What comes to mind, those of us that are on here right now? What comes to mind when we hear the phrase ancestral burdens? What comes to mind for you? What shows up for you when you hear the term ancestral burdens? What comes to mind? Does anything come to mind? Tell me what comes to mind when you hear the term ancestral burdens. Let me know, IG, let me know here the term ancestral burdens. Let me know, IG, let me know, TikTok. What comes to mind when you hear the terminology ancestral burdens? I want to know. Over here on TikTok, generational trauma. Yes. Let me see if anyone on Instagram, on the Instagram. What comes to mind when you hear the terminology ancestral burdens? Poverty. Oh, that's a big one. That's a big one, my brother. That's a big one, a big one. The trials and tribulations our ancestors went through that have been passed on to us. Yes. Fear, compliance, depression. Yes. Most definitely. What else? The question is, what comes to mind when you hear the terminology ancestral burdens? What comes to mind? What comes to mind when you hear the terminology ancestral burdens? Scarcity. Yes, that's a big one. That's a big one. That's a big one. That's a big one. That's a huge one. Scarcity is a big one. What else? What else? Anyone else? Repetition. Yes. Repetition. Yes, yes, yes. Most definitely. Rape. Pillage. Yes. Yes. Okay. Have you ever felt have you ever felt like you're carrying pain that doesn't even belong to you directly? Have you ever felt that you're carrying burdens that when you reflect, when you do a self inventory, burdens that when you reflect, when you do a self inventory, when you go back in your mind, you can't even think, you can't even recall how or when did it start for you as far back as your personal memory goes. You can't even think about when is it that this started. Have you ever felt like no matter what you do, no matter how much, no matter how much work you do, no matter how much therapy, no matter how much effort you put into the work that you're doing energetically, spiritually, vibrationally, and the efforts that you put in, certain struggles just keep showing up over and over and over and over and over again. It keeps repeating itself in your life. Can anybody identify with this statement? Anybody over here on TikTok, over here on IG? Can anybody identify with that? It's almost like certain specific struggles keep showing up over and over and over again in your life, and you see it. It was present in your parents' life. You see it in your own life, and many of you who have grown children, you see it in their life as well. So you see the repetitive nature in generation after generation. Those burdens show up through my parents. It's been one of the major challenges I've been transmuting. Yes. Cycles of abuse, expectations of submission, excelling. Yes. Yes. So it's almost as if you do as best as you know how to. You do inner work, internal work, to be able to relieve yourself from the burdens that you grew up under, you grew up in, the burdens that your life faces all the time. But no matter what you do, it seems like it's not good enough. Does that resonate with you? If it resonates with you, I want you to put a little, let's see, let's pick one. A little candle emoji in the chat. I don't know if you have candle emojis over here on TikTok. I assume you do. But a candle emoji, if you recognize that in your life and in your history, and even in the history of your family, you see repetitive behaviors, repetitive burdens, repetitive cycles that keep showing up over and over again. I see. Yep. That keep showing up over and over again. I see. Yep. Well, let me tell you, I want you to know that there is absolutely nothing coincidental about that you see. It's not a coincidence. Quite the contrary. That is indeed the burden of unhealed ancestors. It means that there was an ancestor in your bloodline, whether you personally knew them or not. They could have passed through, they could have transitioned before you were even born. And then yet it does not mean that you don't carry their burdens. Okay? It doesn't mean that you don't carry their burdens. Okay? It doesn't mean that you don't carry their burdens. It feels like a hate thing in family. In your family, very important. We have to understand the basics. And many of us, maybe all of us, understand the basics, right? And what are the basics? Well, the basics is that our ancestors don't just live in our memories. We know this. I believe it's safe to say that all of us know that our ancestors, those that we knew, those that we met, those that we grew up with, and those that we didn't meet, they don't just live in our memories. They live in our bones, okay? They live in our bones. They live in our blood. They live in our DNA, which science calls epigenetics. But in spiritual terms, in metaphysical terms, spirit calls it uh, uh, ancestral memory. Spirit calls it ancestral memory. If you see me looking back and forth, you know that I have Instagram over here, I have TikTok over here, memory. If you see me looking back and forth, you know that I have Instagram over here, I have TikTok over here. I'm trying to go back and forth, follow the messages. It's hard for me to see the messages here on TikTok because of the reflection. That's why my hand is here, so I can block the reflection and I can actually read some of the messages and then read over the messages over here. It is ancestral memory. So every trauma, listen to me, every trauma, every heartbreak is a big one. Heartbreak is a big one. Every trauma, every heartbreak, every moment of silence is carried forward in your DNA. Every heartbreak, every setback, every loss, fear, anxiety, abandonment, abuse, heartbreak, health issues, all that is carried forward. And you are carrying those burdens, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. Whether you're consciously aware of it or not. And what happens is that when we ignore it, and many of us do, for multiple reasons, when you ignore, not disappear. It does not disappear. It simply repeats itself over and over and over again. Carry forward as adept, if that's the word that resonates as adept, is carried forward in terms of you being the one who's now responsible to clear the path for yourself and for other generations to come. That's what that means, carrying forward. It carries forward, it means it carries on to the next generation. It carries forward into the next generation. And it repeats itself over and over and over again. Trauma doesn't disappear. It is stored in our DNA. And it is stored in our DNA. Some kind of allergies, so my forgiveness. It is stored in our DNA through behaviors, our behaviors. Okay. In family systems. in the culture of our family. So, for example, think about this. Think about a. It keeps freezing. I hope there's. Well, think about this. Think about a. It keeps freezing. I hope there's not the third one over here on TikTok Live. Um, think about it this way. A grandparent, for example, uh, a grandparent who grew up in deep poverty, for example, a grandparent that grew up in deep poverty, often that particular grandparent might have passed down fear, and now the family struggles with scarcity. And no matter how much money they make, right? Now the grandchildren also struggle with money management, because just because, listen to this, just because there's a history of poverty in your lineage, your grandparent might have grown up in poverty and died in poverty. You then, or your parents then, came about, right? And they probably were better at making money. They probably had a better situation financially. But the vibration of that poverty in which your grandparent grew up in, if it has not been uplifted, if it has not been healed, for lack of better words, that vibration gets passed on. It might not affect your parent. It might have not affected your parents in the same way, because maybe your parents are better off financially. But for some reason, that vibration passed on, continued to pass on, and now you are the one that has poor financial literacy. You have poor management in your finances, poor money management. You splurge. You don't know how to save. The money doesn't last. You try to put away. You were heartbroken when you were making 50 grand. You did not know how to survive. Now that you're making 80, you're still struggling. And if you made it into the six figures and you're still struggling because of poor management, because of over struggling, and if you made it into the six figures and you're still struggling because of poor management, because of overspending, because of lack of financial literacy, and that if we go all the way back to the history of that, we can find that this stems as a result of the poverty in which your grandparent grew up in and died in, and that vibration has not been uplifted, has not been sent into the light, that cord has not been cut. And if you find it very hard to wrap your head around, why am I struggling financially when I'm doing 100 times better than what my grandparents endured? And then yet I'm still struggling in this lifetime. That's one reason, right? Another one could be, for example, an ancestor, who suffered abuse in silence, never spoke about it, never shared it, never healed it, suffered abuse in silence. Passes down what? A person that endures abuse in silence, and that's never healed fully, and it's never uplifted. They pass down what? They pass down shame. They pass down disconnection. Okay. Generations later, family, they still don't know how to speak their truth. I have sat with countless of clients in personal sessions, that cannot understand why they struggle to speak their truth. They're strong-minded, they're strong-willed, they're successful, they're gorgeous, or they're beautiful, or they're handsome, or they're attractive. Everyone is always paying. They're gorgeous, or they're beautiful, or they're handsome, or they're attractive. Everyone is always paying attention to them. They like the room when they walk in the room, and then yet they struggle with facing their truth. And it's not until you do a deep dive into understanding the energetic, vibrational, and spiritual components that contributes to that person's inability to confront, face, and speak their truth, you would not know that it stems from an ancestor who suffered in silence. Does this resonate? Is there anyone on here? There are not many of us live because, of course, the algorithms are not helping. Many of my following doesn't even know that I'm live here right now. But those of you that are on here, how many of you identify with this? How many of you this sounds familiar to? Put a candle emoji in the chat. Put a candle emoji in the chat if this resonates with you. Because it is important for you to understand how unless we understand the root cause, we can't address it. And if we can't address it, we can heal it. I want to do a little sidebar on heal it. We can heal it. I want to do a little sidebar on healing. I want to introduce to you, I've spoken about this before, but if you haven't heard me speak about this before, I want to briefly expand on the notion, the understanding of healing. Healing, especially in this day and age, in the day and age of social media and the internet, healing is a word that's used loosely. And, excuse me. Yeah. Healing is an overrated word. But in my opinion, in my professional and spiritual opinion, few of us understand the true walk of, thank you, the true walk of healing. Thank you. And that is because healing is not what it looks like. Healing is not what is portrayed out there. I am someone, before I say what I'm about to say, so no one feels like I'm trying to mock them or make fun or dismissing or diminishing, I am all for the journaling, the meditating. Hence, I teach meditation. I do meditation classes. So, needless to say, I am all for it. I advise people to journal. I advise people to connect with spirit in what many would consider in this day and age that in ways that identifies with New Age practices, right? But healing until you truly begin to shed. The healing can only take place through a shedding process. And such shedding can only take place when you are open enough, willing enough to face your truth. But if you come from a family, if you come from parents, if you come from grandparents that did the total opposite of facing the truth, by way of hiding it, concealing it, denying it, ignoring it, covering it up, you already carry a vibration that makes it hard for you to face your truth. Your mind tells you that you want to face the truth. Thank you, Orito Ake. Put for those of you on TikTok, someone on Instagram put bombs. So I hope that this is resonating with you. Many of you are in that struggle bus. And the struggle bus of self-denial, the struggle bus of, I don't want to talk about it. Is there anyone on here that can admit, maybe you're not there now, but can you admit that at some point in your life, you were a person that certain difficult, really difficult things, you had rather not talk about it? You don't want to talk about it? Your best friend, the person that you're connected to, the person that you know loves you, wants to come and support you and talk about, and you're like, I don't want to talk about that right now. I don't want to talk about that right now. Has anyone, the person that you know loves you, wants to come and support you and talk about, and you're like, I don't want to talk about that right now. I don't want to talk about that right now. Has anyone come and support you and talk about, and you're like, I don't want to talk about that right now. I don't want to talk about that right now. Has anyone, ooh la la. Has any of you ever said, I don't want to talk about it? I don't want to talk about it because the idea of talking about it, I feel like it's going to hurt me too much. I don't want to talk about it because I feel that I will re-traumatize myself if I talk about it. I don't want to talk about it because I was taught, I was conditioned, I was trained to suck it up and keep quiet. Can anyone raise their hand? Can anyone put a candle emoji? If you grew up in an environment, in a family that told you, suck it up and deal with it. Suck it up and stop crying. Stop being such a baby. Stop being such a wuss. Stop being such a pussy. Stop being so weak. And you were trained and taught to suck it up. And if in your formative years of life, specifically and especially, you were trained to not talk about things and suck it up and be brave, especially us men. Be brave, be tough, suck it up, don't cry, don't this, don't that. You don't know how to speak your truth. You don't know. And listen to what I am about to lay in your heart. There is a dichotomy in this, what I'm about to say, that might sound contradictory. On the flip side of that, it's not that you don't want to. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? It's not that you don't want to. Deep down inside, you do want to. Wanting to do something and knowing how to do it are two completely different things. And not knowing how to do something does not mean that you're not intelligent, that you're not capable, that you're not someone that's resourceful, that you're not someone that is great at the job that you do. It's just that energetically, that vibration, it's in your DNA. It's in your blood. It's in your bones. And you simply don't know how to face that truth. Do you hear me? Are you picking up what Spirit is laying down? Which is why it's so much easier for you to say, I don't want to talk about it. If you don't talk about it now, when will you talk about it? Another thing that never makes sense, and it will never make sense because it simply doesn't make sense. Thank you so very much, Omi, for that heart. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much for those gifts. Is because Many of us were taught that talking about it made us weak. Talking about it made us dependent. Talking about it made us not strong enough. Does that resonate with you? In your case, I know that particular resonates with me. So it's important for us, by way of ancestral elevation, we are able to open the gates to set our restrictions. Listen to my choice of words. To be able to set our restrictions free. We got to free ourselves from these restrictive behaviors that only contributes to the same low vibrational energy to continue to be passed on, passed forward, as they say. And I will tell you this is something, a personal thought of mine. You can only be so strong until that particular strength which you hide behind kills you. That statement that I just shared with you, which is a personal thought of mine, is much deeper than you allow your brain to see. You will only be so strong when you hold on to these restrictive, I believe they are false strengths. False strengths. And it's so interesting to me, and I don't want to feel like I'm going all over the place, but I don't think I am. How even in our own families, that level of strength is celebrated. It's definitely celebrated in within the men, right? But it's also celebrated by way of support by women in our family. Are you picking up what Spirit is laying down? Is this resonating? Is this making any sense to you? How do I know? Because I can't even begin to tell you how many times, thank you for that lightning bolt. I can't even begin to tell you how many times I have been at funerals where conversations about the deceased stems around comments like, oh, que fuerte, no, era fuertísimo. Era fuertísimo. Oh, he was so tough. Or she was so tough. Oh, she was so forced to be reckoned with. She was so tough. She was so tough. That is a celebration of what I call as false strength. Because that so-called toughness, that so-called strength was a facade, was a protective shield that took that person to the grave. And that particular strength that many of us, including myself, because I've done it in the past, I've learned over the years to see this differently. That particular strength that we celebrate is a particular strength that took that person to their grave with unresolved issues, unhealed behaviors, unhealed patterns, unhealed behaviors, unhealed patterns. So that runs a lot in many people's cultures, families, historically speaking. I'm telling you, how many of you identify with what I just said? Many of us have been there. I know this. I've seen it in my personal life, in my professional life. I've seen it more times than I can count. Especially if you're Latin, if you're Hispanic, if you're Black, it's celebrate. Oh, he was so. You go to that person's funeral when they transition, when they pass away, and they're saying que fuerte era. No, no, no. Ella era fuertísima. Que fuerte era. Oh, he was so strong. He was so tough. He was so tough. And we celebrate it. It's celebrated within Latin culture. It's celebrated within Black culture. It is celebrated. And I'm here to tell you that is what I personally refer to as false strength. Because it's not the kind of strength that anyone wants to pass down, in my opinion. It's not the kind of strength that anyone should inherit. It's not. As a Cuban man, I was born in Cuba. I was raised in this country. And I come from, needless to say, tough parents, right? And, as very typical Cuban culture, boys don't cry, los hombres no lloran, dale, enderezate, cuál es la pendejada tuya, qué te pasa, all that, which I now, at this age, with my experience, with my studies, and what I have learned throughout my life, when I look back, that was abuse. I didn't see it as abuse. 20, 30 years ago, you could never convince me that was abuse. Now looking back, I see it. Obviously, it was not done intentionally. For the most part, for many, for the vast majority. We're not talking about, I always like to be as specific as I know how to. We're not in this current conversation, we're not talking about abusive parents, right? Abusive parents that just, real abusive parents that have no love for their children. That's not the parenting that I'm speaking about. That's not part of this conversation in this moment. I'm speaking about the parent who simply did what was done to them, and it was normalized. It was normalized because they did to us the same thing that was done to them, and no one saw anything wrong with it because it was acceptable. It was acceptable. Which is why, and let me give a disclaimer here, I do not condone bad behavior. I am not making excuses for bad behavior. Okay? Disclaimer's out. What's wrong is wrong, no matter how you put it. Ahora bien, listen to me. This is why when I do counseling, when I do my one-on-one sessions with my clients, a great number, as a matter of fact, the vast majority of my clientele is women. And when women come into session with me, or into a healing session with me, and they are about, complaining about the man in their life, whether it's their father, their husband, their boyfriend, their ex, and they're like, ojalá que se muera, and I hope he dies, and he's horrible, and he's this, and he's that. And her experience of that person, needless to say, is validated. It's validated. That's her experience. It's validated. But what I try to do, I validate her experience with that man, father, brother, husband, boyfriend, el de turno, whatever. But I also make it a point to do my best to educate by letting her know, because this is the case for many women, that person that she's condemning for not expressing himself, for not, sharing his emotions, for, hiding his feelings, for not being emotionally available. It's the same, especially if the client is a mother of a son. That's the same way. That's exactly the same way she's raising her boy. Why? Because it's the way that she was raised. And she doesn't see the connection at first, initially, until she reflects and she says to herself, oh, shoot, wow, yes, I have caught myself telling my son, don't cry. I have caught myself telling my son, stand up straight. I have, caught myself telling my son, boys, don't cry, be tough. What are you doing? So that son that's raised like that, okay, guess what? He turns out to be the guy that's not emotionally equipped, not emotionally available, hard truth, to support your valid needs. So on one side of the coin, we can't make excuses for bad behavior. On the other side of the coin, we have a responsibility to understand where it stems from. We have a responsibility to understand where it stems from. So that in your journey, when you initiate a new relationship, you know how to read the person better. So that you're not opening yourself to another person, a new person with the same old behaviors, as it tends to happen countless of times. So that you're not dealing with an extension of what you should be able to free yourself from, in this particular case, by way of uplifting those vibrations, by way of ancestral healing. And ancestral healing, sidebar again, ancestral healing is something that's not new. I express ancestral healing from an Afro-Cuban standpoint, but there's ancestral healing through indigenous practices, native practices, okay? There's many different ancient and ancestral practices that support ancestral healing. Why? Because number one, the obvious, regardless of what your denomination, what your faith is, what you identify through spiritually, religiously, and I don't talk about religion. I'm not talking about religion. I talk about what is metaphysical spirituality, universal laws, which is true across all dogmas, all belief systems. And an undeniable, unrefutable fact is we can't deny that we come from someone that came from somebody else, that came from somebody else. So this idea that ancestral work is evil or is devil worship or is listen, you do ancestral worship every single day of your life and you don't even know it. You do ancestral worship every single day of your life. The only difference is you do it unconsciously. And you do ancestral worship. You know how? Through your behaviors. Through your unhealed patterns. Through your low vibrations. Through your mentality. Through your lack of awareness. You are an extension of that person that came before you. And by way of your behaviors, your pain, your trauma, your conditioning, your restrictive nature with self, you're worshiping your ancestor. And the only difference is that I would like for you to consider is how we have a responsibility with self to shift the way we worship our ancestors. Going from an unhealed, low vibrational, stagnant, traumatized, burdened way of honoring our ancestors to a higher level understanding, excuse me, through a higher level understanding, through self awareness, through the ability to discern, to the ability to be able to free ourselves from behaviors, beliefs, patterns, and mentalities that only restricts you. That is your responsibility. It should be. Are you all picking up what Spirit is laying down? Is this resonating with you? TikTok land, is this resonating with you? IG, is this resonating with you? Does this make sense? Because trust me when I tell you, your ancestor shows up every single day of your life. Your ancestors, those that you knew, your ancestors that you never met, they show up in your life every single day. They show up at work, how you allow yourself to be manipulated, overworked, underpaid, how you settle, how you play it safe. They show up in your life by how you are in interaction with your significant other, with your boyfriend, with your wife, how you fall in love, how you fall out of love. They show up every day in your life, how you deal with money, with finances. They show up every day in how you set goals and how you attempt to reach your goals, or how you don't set goals and how you settle and restrict yourself because of fear of failure. They show up every day in how you interact with people. They show up every day in how you feel about people. The racists, the bigots, how judgmental you are. It shows up every day. Trust me, your ancestors show up every single day. That's a different form of worshiping them. We just don't call it that because you're keeping that vibration alive in your behaviors, in your mentality, in your beliefs, and in your actions or inaction. Are you picking up what Spirit is laying down? Is this making sense to you? Let's move forward. And I think I already said this in terms of how this makes sense. We spoke about how an ancestor who suffered in silence passed down shame, passed down disconnection. They're disconnected from self, so you're disconnected from yourself, and you don't even know why. Is there anyone here right now, whether on IG or on TikTok, is there anyone here right now where you know, if you're honest with yourself, you are in love with love. You love the idea of love. You love the notion of being in love. When you see a movie that's a love story, it melts you, it brings tears to your eyes, and you live vicariously through someone else's love story because you wish that you had that. And my question to you, why wish to have it when you could have it? And what's keeping you from having it? Come on now, somebody. If that's you, and you don't feel timid and embarrassed, what's keeping you from having it? What's keeping you from having it? Your true, ideal vision of love. What's keeping you from having it? Vision of love. What's keeping you from having it? Why don't you have it and someone else does? Why? Can anybody chime in? I've always said I love love. Yeah, I always say I'm in love with girl. What about here in TikTok land? And I always rooting people in love, rooting for people in love. I feel like it's a lot of work. Oh, I don't want to pick on you, but thank you for sharing. I feel like it's a lot of work. You know why? You may not know this consciously, especially those of us that may not know all the stories within our family, within our lineage. But those of you that look at love as hard work, oh, it's just too much hard work. It's the same person that loves love but runs away from it because they feel they're going to fail. They feel they're going to fail. They feel that they don't deserve it. They feel that they are not worthy of it. They feel that they're not special enough to have it. And those of us that think that it's too much work, perhaps there is an historical account in your DNA, in your blood, in your bones, of someone who experienced heartbreak, experienced abandonment in the love department. Maybe it was someone that did the impossible to prove herself or himself to someone else and was never recognized, validated, supported, seen, loved back. And that for them represented a lot of work that amounted to nothing, with nothing to show, with no rewards. That unhealed vibration carried on. And now to you, anything that looks like love feels like it's too much work. Because when you've tried, you failed. When you've tried, it was too painful. When you tried, it backfired. Does this make sense? Does this make sense? Another group of you who say, oh, this whole love thing is just too much work. Perhaps your mother, perhaps your grandmother was that person who did the impossible, overdid it, just overdid it, had to do the most to prove herself to be loved back, to get the crumbs of love that she got back. And that represented too much sacrifice. Sacrifice of self, sacrifice of your own identity. And energetically and vibrationally, it has translated to, it's just too much work. But what I want for you to understand from this conversation is that it's not only that you feel that it's too much work, it's the fact that 10 times out of 10 in my experience, this belief did not just start with you. You're referring to it in terms of your personal experience, but trust me, it did not start with you. It did not start with you. And you have a responsibility to yourself to cut that cord, to uplift that vibration, to usher it into the light, and open new portals of opportunities for you. Because when you were created, opportunities for you. Because when you were created, the God of your understanding, the source of your understanding, when you were created to give and receive, you were not created to not experience the bests of you. It is our beliefs, it is our conditioning that little by little restricts us, clips our wings. Is this making any sense to you? Personally, me, I think I already had my fairy tale love. He set the bar too high No, I'm sorry. I beg to differ with that. I beg to differ with that. I beg to differ. I beg to differ. That is one way that you choose to look at it. You choose to look at it from the perspective that you already had it and he set the bar too high. But you could also make a choice to say, this person I had it with, they set the bar high enough for me not to ever settle for anything less than what I know I can have because I've had it. How about that for a new way of looking at it? How about that for a reflection? How about that for a reflection? Because I had it before does not mean I can't have it tomorrow. I can look at it from the perspective of, because I had it yesterday, I can still have it tomorrow. I just have to be someone that knows how to make better choices. I have to know myself so well, so deeply, so profoundly, so intimately, that I do not leave room for settling for less. Is this making any sense? We could also speak about ancestral burdens in terms of families where chronic illness runs through the bloodline and it goes from generation to generation. Chronic illnesses, not only because of a person's that person's biology, but because of emotional pain, okay, and also unresolved grief that is lodged in the body. Unresolved grief, okay, gets lodged in the body. And that unresolved grief that gets lodged in the body shows up with illnesses, chronic pain, health issues. It shows up. It shows up in the body. Trust me, and trust and believe. Which is why, when in terms of the Western medical system, can only meet you halfway, because the Western medical system treats you with medications. It treats the body. Listen to this. Listen to me. Western medication, Western medical attention treats the physical body. Ancestral healing treats the spirit, treats the inner spirit, treats the vibration. I'm not saying that the Western medical approach is no good, because God knows it has come a long way and it has saved many lives, a way of medication. But we also have to bring into the equation, we have to invite a more holistic approach. Holistic approach, spiritual approach, ancestral approach. We have to invite it into the conversation and allow them to merge, to support each other. Okay? It's important. We can speak also about emotional disconnection. There are countless, hundreds, thousands of families who carry a vibration of emotional disconnection. And those are families where love is rarely spoken. Love is rarely spoken. Love is rarely spoken. Affection rarely shown. No hugs, no I love yous. And that echoes of ancestors who lived in survival mode. Come on now, somebody. Wow, this is a class. I hope you know that this is a class, and I hope it's resonating with you. If we look at the root, if we look at the root of what this emotional disconnection that people experience stems from, somewhere in the history, somewhere in your DNA, somewhere in the historical experiences of your lineage, there was somebody back there, somebody who was in survival mode, especially if you're black, especially if you have indigenous roots. Survival mode. And when you live in survival mode, there's no time for you to express tenderness. There's no time for you to express love. How can you express love and tenderness when you every day you got to make sure you don't die that day? Every day you got to make sure the slave master doesn't kill you. Which is why so many of us that have African ancestry, we are one of the most, in my opinion, the most emotionally broken, where the love language has been lost, and we're still struggling to bring it back. We're still struggling to resurrect it. We're still struggling to connect back to the strongest energetic vibration that exists in this universe, which is love. Self-love being the foundation. But how can you be successful in love, in self-love, when you stem from a lineage that suffered emotional distress because they were not able to express tenderness and love? COC, does this make sense to you? See, this is the inheritance that no one talks about. This is the inheritance that no one speaks of, or very few speak of from this perspective. So that silent baggage it's the silent baggage that we receive without choosing it. It's a silent baggage. We received it, we're carrying it, we didn't ask for it, but we're carrying it. And because we're carrying it, guess what? We have a responsibility to address it. We have a responsibility to address it. And the longer it continues, the heavier it becomes for the next generation. The heavier it becomes for your own daughter. The heavier it becomes for your own son. The heavier it becomes for generations to come. That's why we have a responsibility to ourselves to do the inner work. To do the inner work. In my family, I'll share something about me. I have definitely over the years discovered patterns of silence and grief. Patterns of silence and grief. The way pain was swallowed, denied, unhealed, unaddressed. They were swallowed down. It was inherited. It was inherited. And many years ago, Spirit revealed to me that I was carrying weight that didn't belong to me alone. It didn't. It was ancestral, and it got passed down. And once I began doing the work, I understood what needed to be done. Because it was inherited, I also learned that what is inherited can also be healed. This is where you sometimes can make a mistake in not understanding that what is inherited can also be healed. And healing, there's a process. This not this overnight 7-step process. And right now I'm healed. All of a sudden I'm healed overnight. No. Healing is a process. Healing, there's a shedding that goes on in the healing process. Which is why in my Afro-Cuban traditions that I practice, I'm highly critical, and I consciously highly criticize religious houses that treat these ancestral traditions as a factory. Because each person, each human, each individual come with their own set of ancestral burdens that need to be looked at closely, attended to closely, wounds that need to be nursed, spiritual inherited wounds that need to be nursed enough for the person to be in the right alignment to receive powerful, energetic vibrations. Because if not, we are working. My godchildren still on here? If not, we are working with traumatized, empty vessels. Traumatized, empty vessels. Where we put the person through ceremony, but ceremony never reached. Ceremony never really grounded. Are you picking up what I'm laying down? Rush is always detrimental. And the only exception is when there is a life and death situation going on. That is the only exception, when there's a life and death situation. I'm not going to go down. There's a complete different topic that's not part of this conversation. I just wanted to lay that down. So here's the truth. I want us to understand that our ancestral burdens, it might feel like it's meant to crush us, but that's not really what it's meant. Our ancestral burdens are not meant to crush us. Why do I say this? I say this because it's easy to fall into the unfounded belief that when you go through so much and you have endured so much and you go through so much pain, you feel that what they left you behind, that it was that they don't care, that they don't support you, that they don't really love you, that they don't see your hurt, that they don't see your pain. Trust me, your ancestors see your pain. Your ancestors see your pain and feel your pain. Your ancestors see your burden and feel your burden. But it is only you who are able to uplift that burden through the work that you do. So that in doing the inner work, you do it for them, you do it for yourself, and for the generations ahead. The burdens that we are carrying from our ancestors are not intended to crush us. They're not. They are meant to awaken us. They are. Now, is the awakening easy? Hell no. Is the awakening free of emotional challenges? Heck no. Heck no. But they are meant to awaken us. And when we do elevation work, when we do ancestral healing work, when we pray, when we chant, when we set intentions, when we honor them, when we cut cords, we give them the light they need, and we then rise. We rise. When they rise, we rise as well, little by little. This is why ancestral elevation truly matters and is so important. We can't run away from the work. We can't. We can't run away from the work. And this is why I've been committed to this cause. Ancestral healing work is what I've done my whole life, right? But publicly, in the public sector, in the public eye, in the community, being called to this level of work at a grander scale. This is why it's exactly why every year I host the Ancestral Elevation Healing Ceremony. It's important. This is a moment in time in which we gather together, to uplift, to cut cords, to better understand ourselves. It's not just a ceremony. Those are just the words we use because we lack better words, right? For better understanding. This is not just a ceremony. It's truly a portal of healing that takes place. A portal of healing truthfully takes place. And together we will release the burdens of the past and open the way for blessings to flow, not just for us, but for, again, our children, our generations to come. We have a responsibility. So, if you are feeling the weight, if you know you've been carrying what doesn't belong to you, then this is your invitation. This is your invitation. Those of you who resonated with any of the messages that were shared here tonight, this is your invitation to join us this year for this year's 6th annual Ancestral Elevation Ceremony. Okay? That's November 2nd, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you are on Instagram, click the link in my bio, go to the first tab, and sign up. Right now, it's still at the discounted rate. Okay? There are payment options. It's easy. It's easier than you make it. Especially those of us that carries those vibrations of scarcity. We always find it so difficult to invest in ourselves. We don't know how to put ourselves first. That's an ancestral vibration that needs to be uplifted, by the way. We don't know how to put ourselves first. We don't know how to uplift ourselves. We don't know how to, we don't know how to, how can I say this? Do us first. So if you are on Instagram, click the link in my bio, go to the first tab and sign up. It's right now at the discounted rate. So before it goes up, I suggest that you sign up. There are payment options. Okay, if you're here on TikTok, more than likely you also have an Instagram. So to access my Instagram from TikTok, go to my bio, go to my main page, and go up where my name and all that is at, and you'll see there the Instagram tab, and you can click on it and then go to the link, etc., and sign up. It will be online, mija. It will be online. It'll be online on Zoom. So you, no matter where you live, and you live in New York, if you live in Texas, if you live in Washington, and where another state, another country, whatever. Every year we've had different people. We've had people from Africa. We've had people from Switzerland. We've had people from Europe. We've had people from Sweden, from so many different places. Join us. So make sure you click the link. Sign up. It's still at the discounted rate. And don't deny yourself the opportunity to do the much needed inner healing work. You are the only one that can do it for your lineage. You are the only one that can do it for your lineage. No one else can do your healing work for you. No one else can do the healing work for you. No one else can do the healing work for you. No one else can. Only you can do the healing work for yourself. Only you. And for those moments that you feel discouraged, unmotivated, that's another vibration that needs to be uplifted. How is it that you can be so motivated when it has to do with someone else, when it has to do with someone else's journey, when it has to do with someone else's growth, when it has to do with someone else's things? But you lack that same enthusiasm, that same motivation, that same excitement, that same consistency, that same commitment with yourself, for yourself. That doesn't make any sense. When you really sit down and think about it, it doesn't make any sense. So invest in you. Do your inner healing work, because it will always benefit you, and it will also benefit your lineage. Your lineage. It will also benefit your lineage. You have to do the work for yourself. No one else can do it for you. So, those of you that have been here for tonight's live, did any of the message resonate with you? If so, excusez-moi. If so, drop a candle emoji. Excuse me. If so, I want to see how many candle emojis we get if tonight's messages resonated with you. It's time. It's time. It's time. It is time. Thank you. Thank you, 1 midnight summer night. It's time. We can't continue to make excuses. And in case your brain is wondering, well, I've done it before. I did it last year. I did it 2 years ago. I did it 3 years ago. Could I do it this year? Yes, and yes, and yes, and yes. Yesterday's not today. Today's not tomorrow. My struggles of last year may not be the struggles of this year. And if my struggles of last year are the same struggles of this year, even more so a reason to do the inner healing work, because it means it doesn't stop. It's continuous. Our desires, our goals, our visions, our petitions, our way of seeing ourselves, our way of experiencing ourselves changes. It can change from 1 month to another month. Imagine from 1 year to the next. This is a portal that opens up on such a highly vibrational day, All Souls Day. And that is a great time for us to surrender to the call, for us to connect with divine nature, for divine source, with divine vibrations, to summon them to the next phase of our life. What's my next phase? Where am I heading, Spirit? I need your guidance. I need your support. I need your light, but I need to uplift. I need to cut cords. Where am I heading from here? If I'm doing good, can I still do better? If I'm doing better, can I still improve that? If I'm not doing good, when will my good come? That's the work that should never stop. Because growth is not restricted. Growth should not be stagnant. Growth is not just a one-time deal. I hope that makes sense. I hope it resonates with you. So, my soul family, infinite, infinite, infinite blessings to each and every one of you. I'm going to share this live, pass it on, okay? Forward it, tag someone, invite someone to watch this live. You have friends, you have family members, you know, need this information and you know could benefit not just from this information, but could also benefit from this year's ancestral elevation. So invite them, support them to do their work, and you do yours. I hope you have a great rest of your evening, and I shall see you soon. I might be back before the week ends. If not, I'll see you maybe on Monday. If not, definitely on Tuesday for next Tarot Tuesday. Peace and blessings to you.